meta for a couple of weeks in EU, and now it's been kind of figured out, and people know how to shut it down. But what I bring it back for is because Fnatic going into that tournament stated, we're going to change the way people play this game with some of our drafts, some of the way that we're going to change things. And we haven't had that moment in this Western Clash where they have changed the way we look at the game, but that's one of the fears about them, right? They always have the possibility that they could change our worlds upside down.
I think the thing that they really brought to it was kind of meta anyway, to be honest, but they were constantly using Lunara, which seemed to have been powering through a lot of these teams, and just catching fire from a lot of those teams. Really, people have been honing down that as one of the strong assassins that obviously Quacknix loves Grubby, so we could see a lot of that contested.
Yeah, Quacknix just knows how to find those angles. Lunara has been one of his most picked heroes recently, but we gotta remember, there's also Falstad. He plays an absolutely amazing Falstad, and it really ties in with how Quacknix likes to call the games. And when we go into this game here on Sky Temple, I want to see the style that we're going to be seeing. Expert is running a lot of double support. I expect that they could maybe go for like massive push style with Ariel double support, but Mass Global can counter that by avoiding the fight. Falstad is going to be a big key in that as well.
I think there's also a good point about Sky Temple in that of the best of 5 in the 3 games that Expert lost to Fnatic earlier, Sky was not one of them. So it's in its own way a fresh start for them in this series. Eventually, they're going to have to make their way back to things like Infernal Shrines. But starting off somewhere fresh, maybe we'll even get some sort of interesting strategy along with it. I think we can expect for them to play standard, maybe at least to kick things off, but then again, they've already played them once, so maybe we get new strategies right out of the gates.
And something that was said when we actually talked to the teams by Athero, specifically on Team Expert, was that if you don't play macro, you might just lose against Fnatic. There's no other way of playing against them. But their macro is very strong as well. So let's get into it. It is game number 1 in this best of 7 grand finals for the Western Clash. Team Expert goes up against Team Fnatic as they have a 1-0 lead in this best of 7.
Of course, Fnatic hasn't lost a single Battleground or series. That's why they get that lead. Expert has to win 4 maps, and Fnatic only 3. Fnatic going to be starting with that Abathur ban.
Yeah, it would appear that they definitely watched the matches that Team Expert had against Team Liquid. Abathur has been one of the many heroes they have been pulling out. They pulled out twice in that series with that 3-0 that did occur. So Fnatic go ahead and get rid of it, but that does leave the Medivh up. Team Expert usually has that Medivh banned against them when Fnatic is facing off, which is kind of crazy, because Fnatic, throughout Phase 2, for the most part, bans out that Tassadar. But when they face Expert, they always find that one niche pick to ban out for Expert.
Yeah, Fnatic in the previous series against Expert, they banned Medivh twice, they banned Tassadar, they banned Diablo twice, and Illidan once. Just to give you an idea, they don't like the shielders on the side of Team Expert, so they're breaking with that tradition a little bit already. Abathur was by far the top hero damage score for Expert against Team Liquid. ADRD got a lot done with that, so that is one problem away for Fnatic.
A new Barak ban here hurts slightly with Warriors, taking that away. But that's also a highly picked Warrior for Team Expert, so I would be surprised if they wouldn't get a Warrior along with this, but that makes me think maybe they're trying to get Fnatic into getting a Warrior even earlier on, maybe saving something else that Expert wants for their composition.
It also shows that Expert really sees Anubrak as the #1 warrior in the game against Team Liquid. Just now in the losers finals, they first picked Anubrak twice, and they first banned him once. So over those 3 games, they never let him go past the first phase. And this game is no different. That's a little bit of information that Fnatic can store going into the next few games.
Does leave up the Ariel and the Uther. Expert will run the Ariel a little bit more than Fnatic will, but Fnatic has to decide what they want to move into. Also, big pickups that you normally see between these two teams, the Genji, Dahaka, and Greymane. There is a Dahaka right away, as Wubby will be looking for that top lane.
Fnatic is such a scary team that when they grab Dahaka, I just tell myself, I shake my head mentally, and I say, you can't give Wubby Dahaka. Yeah, but there's so many other picks like that for Fnatic, for Wubby, that in the end, you gotta let them have some heroes, right?
Yeah, and again, with that Dahaka coming in and us already knowing what solo laner is going to be, we get that tantalizing glimpse into Wubby versus Athero that we got in the previous series. Unfortunately, we didn't get to watch too much of it because of how the series unfolded, but it's always fantastic to watch Wubby versus Athero.
Yeah, honestly, this is a match where I would love to just watch only the solo laners while the laning phase is going down because it is so intricate. Both of these solo laners are incredible for both of the teams.
That would really be a different way of observing the match. But if there was any going to be like that, this would be it.
It's just deaths popping up, and we're like, we don't care. These guys just bouncing between each other.
Can we just once? That'll be nice.
Wow, Team Expert goes straight for lethal choices here as they pick up Genji and Illidan. Of course, Illidan being in that spot to handle that Dahaka. Those are the lanes that we will be watching out on. I was kind of curious to see if Expert would try to go in for Ariel Vala and do the different rotations in terms of putting different lanes out. They've been trying to put that Vala Ariel against the solo laners a lot, but they decided not to do it here on Sky Temple, electing to go ahead and get a little bit more team fight potential and, of course, the hunt at level 10.
I really feel like when Expert does something like this, or when I think about the mind of ADRD, and it's difficult because it's like all crazy in there, that kind of start to a draft must be trying to drag something out of Fnatic somewhere, because going that much heavy melee, why is he wanting to, you know, push it towards that initially, etc.?
I would also think, besides that, or beyond that too, what is the best game that Expert has had so far in this event versus Fnatic? It was Infernal Shrines.
And this is just in line with that, isn't
They
it?
had Genji and Illidan once again there. The double support, while that has been a favored strategy of a lot of teams, maybe Expert's starting to realize that they need to just try to keep up with the macro game, try to bring the same type of style that Fnatic is playing and is so good at straight to them.
Not a bad idea. Double support does get out-rotated a bit by this mass global style that Fnatic is showing. And Fnatic has been, I feel like, the kings of Sky Temple for such a long time, more than a year. Always bringing all those globals in. Dahaka, ETC, Brightwing. Stage dive is an option, though Mr. Breeze usually prefers Mosh Pit for the added teamfight prowess.
Yeah. With that being known, does Team Expert consider getting rid of the Falstad here? Fnatic playing on Sky Temple could have been a rotation later on. They decided to go ahead and get rid of the Ariel, so Team Expert will not allow that to go up, but Fnatic still has potentially that Falstad later on.
So looking at the Infernal Shrines game, the first one that they played in the previous series, it was Abathur, Illidan and Genji, and the support was Karazim. The warrior was Johanna. Johanna, very easy to get away from ganks since she has her own cleanse. And Karazim, same thing, with all those dashes. If Expert is looking to recreate the draft that they had, to some degree, Fnatic could try to deal with that.
I'll be honest, I'm very surprised it wasn't a Lunara ban over the Oriel, but I mean, those two kind of work in tandem with one another if that's to come to fruition, but it's Quacknix. We see him on screen. He loves that hero right now. What are we thinking for Expert?
Wondering here, actually. I'm just looking at it, thinking of possibilities that they could move into.
Stukov.
They could do Tyrael Judgment or Sanct. I still think for the support they probably want Karazim. They don't have enough bodies to stop ETC from just diving onto Stukov, I think. So it's got to be a mobile support like Rhaegar or Karazim.
There's also the boss to consider. Obviously, a lot of the team fights happen around the shrines, but Tassadar is going to be able to help out with the supporting. Tass Illidan is a fearsome composition or combo, and then you add Rhaegar behind that with the burst heal.
Okay, so we're kind of jumping back to a little bit more regular sustainy team fights by Expert. They, after all, don't have that Abathur, that master, puppet master, that they had on that Infernal Shrines game. So now they have a bit more of a team fight. But it's still quite a split pushy macro kind of composition for Expert. Illidan and Genji are both great finishers, but they don't put out a lot of sustained damage. Just going to put a little bit of a note, Expert doesn't need to draft a main tank.
I was going to say, like, why do I get this scary feeling that they're not going to do it?
I don't think they can per se here, actually, huh?
It is a conundrum, because drafting as they have drafted, if they wanted a main tank early, there's the Nubrak gone, ETC gone, etc., etc.
I think Li Ming or something would fit better, but well, remains to be seen. It could be Li Ming, could be Falstad, could still be a main tank. But let's look at Fnatic first. They grabbed that second support, Karazim, and that very trusty Vala.
I was wondering if maybe we would see a Cassia here, giving the blinds to Illidan, but instead going back to Vala, another Quacknix hero.
I was kind of curious what Bad Benny would play if we didn't go into the tanks here.
I mean, there's been Johanna played by him before, but that was on Infernal.
Yeah, Johanna's pretty solid, can shrug off Polymorph, Power Slide, Drag Tongue, what have you, blind Devala, blind Karazim, it's all good. And it's the probable pick, but we're just kind of saying, like, what if it isn't? What if...
Right, exactly. Never know with them. As much as they have been stable in compositions recently, there's always the potential.
Diablo makes sense though, because they don't have that much damage in Genji and Illidan, like sustained damage. Diablo helps a lot with adding extra damage. Anytime you need a warrior when you don't have that much yet, you don't go into Johanna, you would go Diablo. But it is going to be Johanna, so this means their team fight weakens, their map control increases. Diablo cannot get away from trouble, but Johanna can.
Yep.
So they're going to play more tactical, less team fights, less kills.
My big question, though, is looking at those compositions. I said at the beginning of the draft, you know, Athero and Team Expert felt like if you don't play macro against Fnatic, you've probably got no chance at all. I don't know if you outplay that macro on the side of Fnatic. They're globals on the map that they know best, Grubby.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They have the double global, particularly the Haka. It's going to be very hard to outplay Wooby on that global macro play. And Expert still following that exact methodology. Makes me a little afraid for Expert, just like you, Kalaris.
Yeah. Well, the global macro play is good for Fnatic, but I still feel like there is a lot of stuff here for Expert to work with. I mean, you have Illidan, you're able to actually match at Dahaka, maybe get into a lane where if you start to get the advantage, although hard against Wubby, you can't make it become effective. You have Tassadar can clear out well, Johanna with the map control. Same time, you got Rhaegar for mercenary camps. So in terms of actual just standard control for Sky Temple, I think they have the options.
Well, do you want predictions there? I'll start with you, Gilly.
I mean, until proven otherwise, Fnatic.
Yeah. Tim.
Fnatic, it's hard. It really is.
Okay.
Fnatic.
Only one word required here at the desk so far for this series. 1-0 currently to Fnatic in this best of 7 as they start with a 1-0 advantage coming from the winner's bracket. Will Team Expert be able to upset them at this beginning of the series? We're about to find out.
They are the mid-season Brawl champion. They are the Titan at the Western Clash as well. Every single team has said they are the team to beat. They're the huge favorite. And we're going to find out if Expert can make it happen or if Fnatic claims another big tournament victory.
You know, I feel like Expert is skilled enough to be able to take out Fnatic, but with the pressure of the draft applied throughout that entire, draft that we saw for Sky Temple, I am a bit scared here for Expert. Yeah. I'm going to remain optimistic, but Fnatic has already found themselves the upper edge.
Expert has the tools, but the one thing that I'm really questioning is, can they break Fnatic's mindset? Because currently Fnatic is on the top of the world. They have the confidence that you need to be a champion, and in order to win against them, Expert have to upset them somehow. Shake their confidence and trying to just seed the doubt in the heads of Fnatic, and that's going to be a tall order.
Yeah, and the sooner the better, really. As fast as possible, the Expert can break that mentality here for Fnatic. It will be able to aid them. And again, a map like Sky Temple, the macro game, the analysis desk broke it down thoroughly. It is just, is the Johanna going to be a problem here? Because Sky Temple is not a map where you think, your wave clear is a must-have if you're going to be successful.
Fnatic just absolutely oozes confidence right now, but not to the extent where you say they are getting cocky here and they are just arrogant, overconfident, and will make mistakes because of it. But every single time you talk to them, they respect their opponents, they analyze the drafts, but from the get-go, they are saying, if we play this crisp, if we play to our strength, if we show what we did in the regular season at the mid-season Brawl, then we are going to win this.
And I mean, they put up a really solid argument so far throughout this tournament. The fact that they are undefeated, and more importantly, that outside of only one game, it hasn't even looked like they've been close to losing. Yeah,
and especially when we're taking their scrim record also into consideration. Every single team you talk to said they ended up in scrim something like 15-2, 17-1. So it's absolutely crazy how strong these guys are. And for ADRD and his boys, this is going to be rough. But they have shown against Team Liquid that they are extremely strong. They have taken Team Liquid down without losing a single map. And that actually gives them a little bit of momentum heading into the series now.
Yeah, the momentum might be something that they can use to overcome Fnatic. But I feel like...
Yeah, just to come back to the momentum, is actually one thing that Fnatic themselves mentioned earlier. They looked at the games and they were like, well, we hope that Team Liquid takes at least 2 games, because the one thing we don't want to see is Expert winning 3 in a row and then coming into the final against us without having lost a single map.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because we have been talking about that champions mentality that Fnatic is displaying right now. But it's like, can Expert, if they got the momentum and the confidence throughout that, can that somehow be enough to just tip them right over the top and be be able to shake them. Again, I am remaining skeptical currently. The game number 1 against Fnatic and the winners bracket that we saw from these two teams is the one thing that's holding on to, that makes me feel like there is definitely a chance.
Yeah.
Because if they had just been a bit more aggressive and, again, failed to respect Fnatic as much as they have, I think Expert really can teamfight almost as well as Fnatic.
I was sitting with Expert when they were going over the series, and several of them just echoed that they said, guys, if we play this a little bit cleaner, then we have this win. And there was a bit of miscommunication turned out in that game, especially when they were trying to go for the core then. But they were talking about it and saying, okay, guys, the series happened, but we have another shot here. Let's go through the losers bracket, go into the grand final, and if we coordinate it better, we have a shot at taking Fnatic down. And as you said before, if you make it happen early, if you get the win on the first map maybe you can really start to push Fnatic a little bit and just at some point put that question in their head where they're asking themselves, is this going to turn against us? Are we actually starting to lose here? And once that happens, you have a shot.
Yeah, and when we interviewed Fnatic before the tournament had started, we kind of talked a little bit of what happened with the playing Ducks, and they made a comment about that. They thought it was good that it ended up having them helping with their mentality, reminding them never to underestimate an opponent. But I feel like you said, if that win came down, Expert was able to get the upset here, I don't know if they would be as gain as much out of that loss as they did against Playing Ducks, but we're about to find out.
Yes, indeed, we are going to find out. To the left on map number 1, we have the Swedish Dream Team, the Quack Street Boys, the Swedish boy band with Quacknix on Vala, Vubi on Dehaka, Smexy on Karazim, Breeze on ETC, and Shrimpy on Brightwing. It is Fnatic.
And the red is going to be Team Expert, wanting to get the upset here. We have a Thero Angel on Illidan, Nyx on Genji, Bad Benny on that Johanna, Tassadar played by ADRD, and Kurson on that Rhaegar.
Now once again, to remind everyone out there, currently Fnatic is in the lead with a 1-0, even though this is the first map the two teams play. Fnatic gets a winner's advantage since they are the team who made it to the grand final through the winner's bracket, whereas Team Expert lost already once and dropped into the loser's bracket. This is the best of 7 series, and Fnatic therefore needs right now 4 wins. 3.
3 wins for Fnatic here, and they got it. For
now.
Go ahead.
Already a little bit of aggression here, right in the middle. We currently have Johanna up at the top, going up against Karazim. And the one thing that really worries me a bit for Expert is, for a Fnatic Sky Temple draft, this just looks so typical. It's all about the globals again for them.
Yeah, and just dancing around the opponents. We've talked about Fnatic really was the team that kind of made the globals meta due to their breakout performance at BlizzCon of last year, and it's going to be something they're going to be flexing here once again about Expert. Shouldn't be going out to aid there up into the top lane, leaving Wabi onto his own, but it's really not going to be too big of a problem here. We know that the Dehaka matchup into the Illidan isn't that favorable into Dehaka, but it's a map where macro, again, isn't nearly as relevant, at least not until you get to the 10-15 minute marks.
Exactly, and especially when we're talking also about the level 10, that's usually roughly around the time the second temple at the bot lane is active, and that can have a huge impact on how the game is being played here. Also, keep in mind that for Expert, this is already such a huge achievement. They were the team that throughout the entire year were trying to break into the big 3, into the top spots in Europe, and now they finally made it to an offline event, and they find themselves in the grand final against the best team in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you this much. I became an Expert believer in the middle of this tournament. Watching them be able to perform within their region, yes, they did have moments to very much impress, but it wasn't until I watched them here that they really began to shine and grow, it feels like. And suddenly, I'm willing to put them up against a team like Fnatic. I'm not kidding when I say I genuinely believe they can take out this Titan.
They are definitely a very impressive team, and I don't think that they are at their peak yet. There's definitely a lot of room to grow for them, especially, of course, with Ethereal just joining before the start of the second phase. But for now, looking at the game, we have both of the teams on level 4, and we have a barely even trade between the two temples.
Yeah, it's been relatively just a flat, even trade. Breeze denied a couple of the mid shots early on. He's trying to be able to stall out here a little bit through mid, but in the end, it is merely a 50-50 across the board. Fnatic temporarily with the XP, but we know it's about the globals that come into the later stages.
And look at Quacknix on Vala, playing a hybrid build right now, going on level 1. Still into the movement speed with a hot pursuit here, also making sure that he's not going to run into mana problems later down the road. But on level 4, committing into the puncturing arrow. We have seen the arrow build also outside of Battlefield of Eternity, but the hybrid build here still showing that he wants to be very aggressive with Vala. He wants to have that movement speed, wants to make sure that he doesn't run out of mana, and once that he has the quest talent completed, he will dish out that damage in fights.
Do you expect him to synergize that with the 13 for better single target survivability later on, or in fact it is just get the Q here at 4? Because typically when we see this in other parts of the world, it in fact is so that the Vala isn't nearly as support dependent and need draw as many resources. She's self-sustaining due to her 13 in that Q build.
I definitely expect him on level 7 to go for the repeating arrow, first of all, for the damage output, and then 13 is, in my opinion, highly dependent on how much pressure is going to be on him. I don't think that Gloom is necessary when you're looking at the opponent's setup, so I could definitely see him speccing into the survivability here. When an Illidan starts to jump you, maybe with a hunt, and maybe there's no cleanse available at the moment, there's nobody really zone for you, it will help you out. It's just surviving a little bit longer to allow your team to move in and help you out.
Yeah, that was always the original justification for the build a while ago whenever this kind of busted out. It was always into those Illidans and Zeratils because you never know if, like, I can't go into the Void, but Zeratil's 1v1ing. Luckily, you've got Q build. You can buy just enough time for those supports to come in. And against a Illidan and a Genji, it's going to be a really nice tool that Quacknix can use.
No, well, Wooby for now is actually in a bit of trouble using the burrow here, trying to escape, but look at those body blocks. Expert want the kill, and they get it. It's the first blood. Team Expert taking down the Haka.
Yeah, and it's really nice timing for them as they're about 10 to 15 seconds away for that temple. There it is on the bottom left. Sadly, though, it is onto one of the globals, so it's going to be able to get the teleport out. Wubby will be back here with the brush stock, but a small experience advantage for Expert, and more importantly, possibly this momentum still carrying into their favor. Exactly. Momentum for them now that they're trying to use, but Athero goes down. Oh my god. There comes Fnatic answering in kind, going for a double kill. Rhaegar falls as well. Expert staying a moment too long, and Fnatic is punishing them hard. Yeah, I was just talking about the brush stock towards the bottom half. Didn't even consider it. Wubby wanted to come up and just lock himself a couple of kills. Expert, though, maybe butting off too much on the top half of the map here. It's all now about these bottom shots. Bad Bunny doing a good job knowing that there were a couple of members of Fnatic on top to still lay a little bit longer. That will help the rotation in, but it doesn't look like Expert has the interest. They're more worried about the 10 in the later fights. What we've just seen is also something that, for me personally, has been a theme throughout the tournament, that a lot of teams now understand completely how to punish an opponent that feels safe, that feels that they have momentum going for them. Take one step too much and all of a sudden there's a turnaround. We saw it when Galeforce Esports did the same thing over and over again. That Stukov play from K1 Pro, all of a sudden turning a fight where they were on the retreat. And in this situation, Expert just stepping out a little bit too far after a kill and getting punished by Fnatic. So we see the pressure of Fnatic on bottom, but Expert decided to distribute that towards top. Schwimpy came in to be able to aid Wubby, use the passive. Now Athero's in a bad spot. Stage dive going to be dropped in. Power slide, it's dodged by the Cyber Agility, but the Fnatic is still on the hunt. Great play by Nick so far. Really nice disengage from Expert. Beautiful how they did this now. Nick in particular anticipating the slide and jumping out right away, using the dash shortly afterwards to make sure that Breeze could not push him back. Great execution here. That was a scary moment there for them, especially when Breeze used stage dive. They didn't even have level 10. So it was great play by Expert. I mean, it was scary when, you know, we saw Schwimpy go in there and the pressure that they were applying with Wubby alone. But the minute you saw the stage up, you're like, that is somebody going down. So it was a great job here from Expert to still be able to get that disengage and keep themselves within a close experience advantage. Though Fnatic has been able to accumulate that 50% greater than them, I'm confident that Expert here in the next fight is going to dominate. One thing, though, Archon. What are your thoughts on the Archon here? And what, you know, from the European perspective, when do you not? I mean, Europe right now is, when it depends on Archon, is actually really cool because you have Archon and Force Wall, I would say, roughly on a 50-50. Maybe leaning a little bit more that map dependent onto the Force Wall, but both ults are fantastic. For this map, I like Archon a lot, especially since we're going to see a lot of fights later on, either over the boss or over objectives. But when we're talking about Cursed Hollow, for example, or maps like Tomb of the Spider Queen, where you have a lot of really close corridors, the value that you get out of a good Force Wall is absolutely insane. It's honestly immeasurable, too, because the worst part is you can hit the world's greatest Force Wall, and when you look at the stats at the end of the game, nobody's going to know. Yeah. It feels bad, and, you know, the Archon would be able to make up for it, but I totally understand. With these shrines, it's open fighting territory, and, you know, debatably a bit of lacking damage on the side of Expert, so I think it's a nice touch-up for them, and ADRD's looking to get that damage in on these shrines. They have a bit of a lack from the backline damage. They will engage heavily with Illidan and with Genji, and then having the Archon available, especially after 20, is going to be absolutely fantastic for them. So I like the choice here quite a lot. When it comes to the rotations on the map, the Haka now at the bottom, and Fnatic really starting to take control. This is another moment, though, where it feels like Expert, with the focus onto the macro, they're giving a bit too much respect. We had to Haka with a lot of the soak onto the bottom half of those shots. Now he's going to make a free transition out. Expert has no ability to contest this middle shrine, though they are kind of feigning confidence around it. They have Johanna and Illidan on bottom, the power slide in, the Rain of Vengeance behind it, dimensional shift, but it's, oh man, it's enough to get him out. I thought for sure ADRD was dead.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I thought Hasadar would be in way more trouble here. And the one thing that really stands out for Fnatic is not only the globals they have, but the amount of CC that is available to them is crazy. The Rain of Vengeance, of course, then also the drag on the Haka. You have ETC with the power slide, Brightwing with the polymorph. There's a lot of tools that they can use that whenever Illidan or Genji engage, they can punish.
Yeah, I would respect the attempt of the macro here, and it's kept structurally Expert into this game so far. But it's just whether or not they will be able to compete into these team fights, because it feels like they're a bit scared like they were before, but the attempt to go in, the Ancestral will connect there with the deflect.
Well done,
wow.
Breeze tries to jump in, but he's a bit too late. Expert is looking for potential turnaround. Here comes the flank from Bad Benny. He goes in from the side. Illidan is down though, and it's the end of Rega as well. Fnatic accepts the turnaround attempt and burns Team Expert.
Bad Benny eating all 7 sides of Smexy's Karazim, doing the damage. And Fnatic takes a very dominant lead so far in this game, and now setting their eyes onto this boss.
Absolutely brutal here. They move in right away. It's a triple kill for Fnatic. 5 kills versus 1. Expert, they have their 13, but with 3 members down, Fnatic doesn't waste a second. They go for the boss immediately, and they are looking fantastic here.
Yeah, right now Expert is on full damage control. They're doing their best to get the experience onto the map, maybe going to apply a bit of damage onto that, but overall, it is just Fnatic in the driver's seat controlling Expert, and this is what we were always talking about. When Fnatic gets this, it seems like they are never going to be the let go. You have to be the one to take it early, or they are just going to walk away with the game.
That's exactly what they're trying to do right now. On the 13s, by the way, Karazim heading into the Fists of Fury for the increased duration, and as we've been talking about earlier, the siphoning Fury on the side of Vala, trying to make sure that in those one-on-one situations, Quacknix can survive a bit longer. But Illidan is now up at the top, so we're seeing Expert trying to get some extra value out of that top lane while the rest of the team is defending. Illidan has an easy time there, but stopping that boss with the 2 Siege Giants is going to be so difficult for Expert, and Fnatic is closing in on level 16 as well.
Yes.
Bad Benny going down once again. Fnatic shows no mercy.
And at what point is Aethero Angel actually going to retreat? Because with that 1 pick onto Bad Benny, no, it looks like Fnatic is comfortable with just the keep. They are okay, they are willing to retreat here, but a full level and a half advantage, and now with the double shrine up, with the globals that we see on the side of Fnatic, it is very, very likely they eat almost 90 to 100% of these shots.
Yeah, way over 100 fists now picked up on 16 for Karazim as well. Smexy definitely putting the numbers on the board now when it comes to the single target damage. Quacknix, of course, also with a frost shot. More control for them. Together with the Emerald Wind, with the slows and the stuns that they have, it is incredibly difficult for Illidan and Genji to really break through and get value. A 2-level lead. Expert once again just sniffing around at the top. Fnatic immediately trying to get the kill, but Rega moves out.
This is one of those moments, though, where it does feel like Fnatic is showing that they are mortal. They have a 3 global advantage over their opponent and a 2-level down tier advantage. What you typically do when you have those things is you address the lane where your opponent isn't with a global, and then you force the fight, and then get the global to come back in, you lock down one, and then you inverse your globals to the opposite lane, and then you at all points are just denying shot on shot on shot. Here's a moment where they are in fact not able to do that, and a little bit slow in transition. Granted, they are making it up for it here by just committing to the hot top half, saying, Expert, you were too slow to get on bottom altar, and so we're going to make you pay.
But at least Expert at this point is picking up the level 16. So, as you said, Fnatic is in a position where they are, of course, leading. They have taken the keep. They are looking good in kills. They have the 1.5 level advantage. But they're not exploiting quite to the extent you would expect. Well, and as I say it, we have the attack at the bot lane where Aethero finds himself in more than trouble. He's down, and that is Fnatic picking up the last few remaining shots. They have lost all their forts, but we are still seeing them in a dominant position. Expert now on 16, they need to look for team fights. It's their one redeeming thing, because once that Fnatic has 20, it's going to be nearly impossible for Expert to do anything.
It does feel like Expert, once Illidan comes alive, there's just that 1 level gap, that 19 to 20, that they have to initiate. Because with a 20 disadvantage, a global disadvantage, and structural integrity disadvantage, that is the only fight that they're going to get and be able to win and claim this game their own, other than a very panicked boss fight, which we cannot expect for quite a while.
You cannot wait for 20 here, because at some point Fnatic is going to checkmate you. There will be temples on the map. They will use their globals on the other sides, and then you can only react to one. But right now, Fnatic is trying to deny that fight. Ancestor comes through maybe a bit early. They're starting to jump in. Schwimpy's low, uses the ice block. Genji is down though.
And Blessed Shield did not connect there, but Schwimpy ended up falling. Does the members of Athero and the rest of Expert have the tools to be able to survive? It doesn't look like that's the case because they are now going to be walking away. How many members of Expert go down?
The drag any second. No, here comes the D, but Johanna dies anyways. That's a triple kill. They trade for one, only Brightwing falling, and now it looks like Illidan is going to be the next target. Athero is immediately being attacked, tries to jump out, but the multi-shot just completely nails him to the ground here. AD already on the run, but Kazda won't be able to survive. Yes, Fnatic is already moving towards that bot lane.
Yeah, the silver lining there was how long Athero and ADRD were able to keep Fnatic distracted onto the map and not immediately transition towards any other objective, but it wasn't long enough to keep them away from this middle keep.
Fnatic playing it safe, not going for a core attempt here, instead destroying the keep and getting more experience. They work towards 20. They play this safe.
Yeah, you know, I was normally on any other map, I may be like, you know, I'd like to see Fnatic in there, but for real, the way the Sky Temple works, if you have a structural advantage, again, the global advantage, and you have the experience advantage, there's no need to. The map is built for you to win. It is your game to lose, so in this case, I don't mind Fnatic's patience.
Perfect example with the Shrine and the Temple activating at the top lane. All Fnatic has to do, keep it global at the bot lane, push the lane in with the catapults, and as soon as your opponent shows up at the top, you move top and you immediately start a fight, or you escort the catapults, or you go for the boss. You have so many options at this point to win the game.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. It's very predictable. On when you fall too far behind, your panic call has got to be boss on a map like Sky. Hope that Fnatic somehow goofs this up enough to get a couple of picks, use that boss in, and then just all into the core.
The Hail Mary attempt by Expert. Dehaka holds the top, a camp goes for the keep. Soon, Expert is not going to have a single keep left in the core, will be the target, but the fight down here starts immediately. We have Illidan with the isolation already starting to go in, but they're
continuous wins.
Brightwing with the continuous wins, and Nick is low, trying to escape with the Dragon Blade in the dash, but he falls.
And the drag there from Wubby landing onto Kirsten. Seven-sided strike coming in, and Bad Benny is feeling the heat. They're way of 100 fists, and he is down. Look at Smexy punching away at the members of Expert, and this is now going to be a 4-0, probably 5-0 wipe in Fnatic's favor.
Smexy going deep, and with the way of 100 fists, taking them down one after another. Athero tries to stop them, but there's the stage dive straight to the core as the catapults are rolling in. Fnatic is ready to finish game number 1 and take the 2-0 lead in this best-of-7 series. Expert goes down on Sky Temple.
Formidable attempt here for Team Expert. They had a shift in their thought process when coming into the draft, but it just feels as if it was pushed too far with the globals of Fnatic, as always, whenever they have those heroes with the ability to rotate and manipulate the controlling of the map. It just feels like it was a bit too much here for Sky.
Smexy, just another day in the office.
I mean, if you were Fnatic, I hope all the members feel that way, because with the dominance that they have shown, I have no reason to feel like they should, you know, second guess themselves in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, at this point, they are just on top of the world, and for Expert, it's going to be rough. But they showed great signs of play on that last map. They had a good kill at the top. They went a bit too deep and got punished for it. But there's definitely potential there for them to rival Fnatic on certain maps and with certain picks.
Absolutely. It's not by any means out of control here. And even for the map being, you know, like Sky Temple, where it directly addresses those team fighting, I feel like they did put up a great team, or a great fight throughout it. Momentum is not broken here yet for Fnatic. It's just when will it break is the thing that we're looking for.
Yeah, they are looking extremely strong. Fnatic, that is, they have the lead as expected. Let's go back to the panel and see what they have to say of our first game here on Sky Temple.
Like a master swordsmith, crafting the perfect claymore there for game number 1, or game 2, I should say, I suppose, for Fnatic here in this best-of-7 grand final, with now a 2-0 victory lead, I should say, as for Team Expert, it's very difficult to go up against that kind of raw power.
Just The synergy of abilities from Fnatic is on a level that I can't even imagine. Things like body blocks into 7-sided strike, making sure that that's there.
Yeah.
I adore the way that they use their heroic abilities, never overusing resources, but also making sure that they use what's needed to get kills. That they were able to save Emerald Wind after a fight and go straight to a boss just in case they needed it for the boss is outstanding.
They're looking like perfection right now. Like, it actually feels hard for us to get up here and say, here's what you need to do, Expert, to get a victory. Because it feels like it's wrong. It seems like Fnatic's going to shut it down in some way, some shape, some form, no matter what we say.
Let's check in with the replays, Grubby, that we do have. I think just one, actually.
Yeah, we've got one replay that I think was probably Expert's best chance to make a comeback here. Now, granted, they don't have level 12.9, but they see an opportunity there on Vala. We slow it down a little bit. Look at that. Turnaround on Genji. He gets saved, stage dive misses, and then suddenly from a hidden corner comes Johanna. And we just stop the replay here for a second. We pause it. Johanna comes there with the flank. Beautiful Blessed Shield. We're going to even run it back a bit. Look at that shield. The turnaround is really cool. We've got Archon available, ADRD is coming in, Bad Bunny comes in, and once again the re-engage on Vala. Most of Heroics had been used for Fnatic, but even in such chaos, Fnatic keeps their cool. They block their most endangered targets, and one of the really cool things is that when Genji tries to use his shurikens, other people stand in front. This is a line of sight ability that will hit the first target that is impacted. They need to not fall to chaos when they get attacked like that.
The hilarious thing about that situation is I don't know if a Johanna could ever get as much value as a Johanna did just then. She got the fine Blessed Shield, she got the perfect Condemn to get about 4 or 5 of them, and then a blind on 4 or 5 of them, and yet they still win the fight.
Yeah, and the Stellar Archon afterwards, to follow up with the auto attack and a splash, like that is theoretically a fight that any other team would win, and Fnatic comes out with it. Now, one part of it was the level 4 coming in there from the Karazim to make sure that the block damage was helpful for the rest of the team. They eventually did clear that up. The initial impact was reduced pretty significantly. And so getting ready for the next match, I think we were talking about it back here. Do you just go full chaos? Do you just start mixing in some crazy things and go full expert in the past?
I am a strong advocate for the mad scientist putting on his goggles and turning on the Bunsen burner in this moment. Because I just don't know if straight up fight you can deal with what Fnatic brings. And it's not like you can say, oh, Fnatic are impeccable on large battlegrounds, so we'll take them to something small. They dominate Tomb of the Spider Queen or any battleground. They are so strong.
Well, let's go and take a look at what map we're going to be on next, because obviously, like, if craziness is to come out, we need to know where we're going to be playing. It's going to be Battlefield of Eternity.
Okay. Again, a map that they haven't played yet in the previous Best of 5. So again, new territory, new memories to be forged here for Team Expert versus Fnatic.
But considering what Gilly just said, Grubby, do you kind of tip your hat to that kind of idea? It's getting to the point now where we can sit here and we can look at Fnatic, so can Expert, and then all of us can say, you're not going to beat them.
Yeah.
You're just not going to beat them if you don't go crazy.
I mean, it's very easy to theory craft a defense for Fnatic against anything that Expert might want to do. It's like settling a high school argument that says, you choose your champion to fight, you choose your, like, I promise you karate doesn't work against my boxing world champion. Like, it's not fair, you know? you have your global strategy idea, you can go for team fight, and we can say, like, it's not going to work against Fnatic because blah, blah, blah. They'll always prove us right. Like, we can say, oh, Fnatic has the counters, but they're out executing, and that's why it ends up being right.
You know, it's rare we actually get an opportunity in a tournament to see this level of ridiculousness on the side of it. I mean, normally when we would come to these grand finals, we would talk about a team such as Fnatic. And I think we would say, yeah, so this is the theory crafting of how you need to try and beat them and stuff like that. Very rarely do we get to the point of it's almost impossible, and there needs to be insanity on the side of Expert to try and find a way through, muddle a way through.
Yeah, the last time that I can remember a team going undefeated, I'm pretty sure, was the Spring Global Championship last year, MVP Black.
Right.
What happened with Edward Gaming? We got the Turtle Intel 20 blunt force gun orbital BFG explosion.
That's so cool.
It was really cool. Unfortunately, it lost, but it was cool.
That's what matters, though, right? As long as you're cool in defeat,
You
that's
go out
fine.
in style.
All right, let's get into it. Draft number 3 here, for game number 3, of course, Battlefield of Eternity. Fnatic leads 2-0 at the moment against Team Expert.
And I know Team Expert has some strategies that they've ran with a thorough on this battleground in the past that can be effective, that have delay tactics incorporated into it. We've seen Probius in the past from them with a photon cannon build. Granted, he's been nerfed since that time, but still pretty strong. We've seen Chromie with the full W build, the idea of just shelling away on the Immortal, but you're defending it with a couple of frontliners constantly. Cool. There are some things that can happen from Team Expert, and we also saw Medivh against Team Liquid, so they do have options here.
And with a different team, Athero Angel even utilized Samuro before on Battlefield of Eternity. He plays that hero pretty well as well, and it's one of the best damage dealers on the Immortal. And not just that, but he can get away anytime he wants to. If played well, he's utterly safe.
You say that, but Fnatic has also utilized it on this map as well.
Yeah.
True. I just think it would give some pep in the step of Team Expert, just to have a little bit of variety against Fnatic. They're obviously trying to match them in terms of what is considered standard, what is meta, and they've played it well throughout the entire tournament. But sometimes you just gotta throw it all out there and see if it sticks.
I sort of, actually, now that you brought up the Samuro, I wouldn't be surprised if it came out in this game. I honestly wouldn't. Like, if you think about Europe versus Europe and how it is right now, there is always the potential.
Do you guys believe that Fnatic is a team that if they won this game, maybe not this game, but the next draft, would they pull what I like to think of as an MVP Black and just draft a Gazlo, draft something? MVP Black would do this. They would roll swap strangely. They just have fun with it.
I don't think so. I think Quacknix is too serious. I think they don't troll around like that. You're right. I have seen that from MVP Black.
Yes.
I mean,